In this lesson, we will learn how to register a custom domain in Microsoft Entra ID. First, we will learn about Microsoft Entra ID domains, then the requirements to add custom domains to a Microsoft Entra ID tenant. After that, we will perform the steps to add a custom domain. Finally, we will conclude our lesson with the review questions. As you may know, each Microsoft Entra ID tenant is assigned with an initial domain name uniquely identified in the onmicrosoft.com namespace. For example, my Entra ID tenant is assigned with the primary domain itlifeskills.onmicrosoft.com. So any users created in my tenant have the UPN identified by itlifeskills.onmicrosoft.com domain. For example, ryan.brown at itlifeskills.onmicrosoft.com. It is not possible to delete the initial domain, but Microsoft allows to add custom domains to the same Microsoft Entra ID tenant and set a custom domain as the default domain. To be added, the custom domains must be available on the public DNS domain namespace and are verified they are owned by the company or organization. For example, I purchased the domain itlifeskills.com so I can add it to my Entra ID tenant as a custom domain and set it as the default domain. After that, any users in my Entra ID tenant can be identified by the itlifeskills.com domain. For example, ryan.brown at itlifeskills.com. As you can see in this screenshot, to add the custom domain itlifeskills.com to my Entra ID tenant, I have to verify I own the domain by adding the txt records to my domain. Besides, for a successful verification, I need to make sure the domain name itlifeskills.com is not added as a custom domain in another Entra ID tenant, and it is not being used in any unmanaged Power BI tenants. And the txt records is added with the same information in my domain, and I have to wait until the txt records is resolved on the internet, which may take at least 1 hour, then I can verify. Now let's add the domain itlifeskills.com as a custom domain to my Entra ID tenant. To do that, I need to open Microsoft Entra ID in my tenant and scroll down to the custom domain names and click on it. Then click Add Custom Domain. Here I need to type in my custom domain name itlifeskills.com, then click Add Domain. As you can see, it shows me with the txt records information, and I need to add this txt records to my domain. To add this txt records to my domain, I first copy the destination or point to address. Then I log into GoDaddy where I purchased the domain and open the domain itlifeskills.com and then click on Add New Record. Here I choose the record type as txt, then type in add as the instruction and paste the value, and I keep the same time to live. That's it. Let's scroll down. As you can see, the txt records has been added to my domain. Now let's get back to my Entra ID tenant. In my case, I have to wait for 15 minutes and I was able to verify that the txt records show up on the internet. Then I click on verified. As you can see, it's successfully verified my domain. Now let's get back to the custom domain names and click on refresh. As you can see, the domain itlifeskills.com show up as verified. Currently, the domain itlifeskills.onmicrosoft.com is the primary domain in my tenant. To make the domain itlifeskills.com as the primary domain, I need to click on it and click Make Primary and click Yes. And now let's get back to the custom domain names and click on Refresh. As you can see, the domain itlifeskills.com now is the primary domain in my tenant. Let's conclude our lesson with the review questions.